Good thing that we do that quality check, right? Because I just realized that my microphone was muted. So that was definitely a good reminder. So go ahead and take the second to run your audio video setup for each session. And then this is just a reminder that we are in session. So please make sure that you remove any distractions that you may have. Close the door, put the phone on silent. If you are at home and you have any distractions that may be present, make sure you turn off that TV, put yourself in a quiet room, and just really be present for this class session. All right, now we're going to do this quality check again. So click raise hand if you see the red record in the upper left corner. Go ahead and put your hands down. Click raise hand if you can see the quality check at the top. Again, put those hands down. And click raise hand if you can hear me this time. Perfect. All right, welcome guys. My name's Justine Kincaid and I'm going to be taking you on a little journey of thinking collaboratively today. We are going to have a lot of fun, and even though this is a virtual class, we're going to take a moment and really think about thinking collaboratively, and we're going to discuss how we can use collaborative thinking in the classroom and how much it can really benefit our students. You'll have to excuse me because I have a little cold, so I apologize if I sound stuffy or I might sniffle throughout this class. All right, so our learning objectives today. Participants can define collaborative thinking and how it's related to critical thinking and metacognition. Participants can explain collaborative competition and explain how it can be destructive to collaborative thinking. So what's our big idea here? My whole goal for you in this class is to really be able to think about how we can integrate collaboration into our classrooms. You know, with this military mentality, it's all about checking the boxes, and we're aware of that. But how can we actually put a heavier emphasis on learning and less focus on just making sure that the students accomplish the tasks that they're required to accomplish to get through technical training? And a really good way that we can do this is by integrating collaboration. As we go through this class and we kind of discuss this, you'll see what I'm talking about, how collaboration can really hone in and build those critical thinking skills. This is probably one of my favorite little silly jokes. You know, classes, we always start out and we do icebreakers. So how much does a polar bear weigh? Enough to break the ice. So at this point, I want you guys to pause your recording that you're watching and answer these questions. You can answer these questions in the chat box if you'd like to, but ultimately, whenever you do your Miss class or just your class summary in general, you're going to be transcribing these answers there. So the questions that I want you to think about and answer is, do you prefer to work alone or in groups? Do you see yourself as a leader when put in group activities? And if someone doesn't agree with you on a project direction, do you immediately feel defensive? And if so, why do you feel defensive? And really think about that why. Why do you get defensive when someone doesn't agree with you? So go ahead and pause the recording now and write these answers down. And make sure that you share your answers as well. So some of the emphasis here is going to be teamwork makes the dream work. Any great thinker or artist didn't create or uncover ideas in solitary. There are many people that helped them. And you know that most great leaders, whenever their idea becomes popular, what I always fall back on saying, well, you know, I couldn't have done it without my team. I couldn't have done it without my team. That's what collaborative thinking is all about, is being able to sit down with a group and bounce ideas off of each other and try to see the bigger picture. So what does collaborative thinking mean? Collaborative thinking is when you take one idea and then you take another person's idea and you guys discuss and you come somewhere, you meet in the middle of those two ideas and you find the best idea. Collaborative thinking is really a super interesting study. So with collaborative thinking, it kind of puts out this idea that thinking shouldn't just be a private event. Thinking should be happening between many, many minds so that everybody can spit out idea that they formed about a certain subject. Think about whatever subject that you'd like, many subjects. And collaborative thinking is all of these people come together and they feel comfortable and they say what they think about a subject out loud. And somehow in this conversation, this big creative idea that encompasses everybody's thoughts and beliefs, and you kind of build it into a little ball of the absolute best idea that you can come up with. And that's really the idea behind collaborative thinking. So whenever we're talking about collaborative thinking and we're talking about collaborative thinking in the classroom, one thing that we have to consider, especially when we put a bunch of alpha type personalities in a room, is with collaboration and discussing your ideas, you're going to have a little bit of competition that comes into it. You're going to have that person that they want their idea to be right. They want their idea to be the idea that everybody supports and goes along with. And if you guys did your homework and you read your Thinking Collaboratively book, Chapter 2, you'll remember it talking about that in the education system, we kind of built competition into the classroom by assigning letter grades and class averages and stuff like that. Luckily, in the military training environment, there's not as much emphasis on who has the highest scores or anything like that. The emphasis is more on completion. So I think that that helps kind of slightly remove that competition element. But this is an issue in collaboration. It can arise when that student makes everybody else feel inferior because they want their idea to be the one that gets through. And as educators in this role, when we're dealing with collaborative thinking, we really should be facilitators. We're facilitating the best collaboration that we can. So in a moment like what I'm describing, when you're trying to incorporate collaboration and you have that student maybe that's just putting too much emphasis on the competition side of it, what can you do as an instructor to kind of weed out that competition? And that just comes with skill and time and learning how to deal with students. The best way would be probably to pull that student to the side, have a little conversation with them, and kind of get them on board with the idea of collaboration. So right now what I want you to do is I want you to take a moment and I want you to think about a lesson, a project, or a task that required collaboration. And I want you to think about your role. Who were you as a person in that collaboration? It could have been during a weekly meeting. It could have been during a project that you had at school. Were you that person that was agreeable, that liked to listen to people, that liked to hear their feedback and what they had to say? Or were you that person in the group that if somebody didn't agree or talked to you, disagreed with whatever your stance was on a subject, were you instantly defensive? I think it's kind of human nature to protect your idea. Like if I'm telling you that mint is the best color ever because I absolutely adore the color mint, and you tell me that that's the worst color ever, I'm probably going to be super duper offended by that. A sensitive subject where you see a lot of this come up is the conversation of religion. If I follow a certain religion and you tell me that you don't agree with that religion, well, I'm instantly defensive of something I hold so near and dear. So take a moment and think about yourself and who you are in collaborative thinking. So now that you have this idea of who you are in a moment in collaborative thinking, I'm going to send you guys to YouTube and I want you to watch a video. So you're going to pause this recording. You're going to go over to YouTube and you're going to watch this video called Cultivating Collaboration. You're going to watch the video, and while you watch the video, really reflect on that collaboration task that we were just talking about. Kind of reflect on all of the goals. The big one that I'm emphasizing here is that person, whether it's you or somebody else, that gets instantly defensive. And then in your missed class summary, you're going to write a paragraph about the video and relate it to that collaboration task. So go over to the chat box and I'm going to post the link for the YouTube video. All right, it is there. So this is the time where I want you to pause, go over to that YouTube video, watch it, and write your missed class summary of your task related to that video. All right, so you should be coming back now from writing about that video. That video is really interesting, isn't it? How stop being so defensive, take a step back. Just because somebody doesn't agree with your idea or the hypothesis that you formed out an idea doesn't necessarily mean that they're against you. They just disagree with your idea, and that should be where collaboration stems from in a positive way, is that disagreement. So now let's move on, and we're going to talk about critical thinking. Critical thinking has been overemphasized might be the wrong word, but it has been very emphasized in education, that in order for a student to be able to do anything, they have to build critical thinking skills. It is the most important, the key to learning. A misconception here is that critical thinking is a single action, that it's a solitary action, that critical thinking can only happen inside of one human's brain. What we're trying to change your thought process here to is that a student can still have to exercise critical thinking, but they should do it with collaborative thinking. So having that critical thinking, but bouncing their critical thinking, excuse me, bouncing their critical thinking ideas off of other students in their groups. So the next thing here is confirmation bias, which kind of feeds into what we talked about with that defensive posture and a little bit into critical thinking. And what confirmation bias is, excuse my definition that didn't get updated, confirmation bias is taking what confirms your beliefs and what you see and only believing in the part that confirms your beliefs and not looking at the whole picture, not looking at all of the objective facts. You only listen to the part that confirms your beliefs. We see this a lot going on in the political world right now on both sides of the fence. With the very sensitive subject of building the wall. You can see people on both sides that get in this confirmation bias when they hear different statistics and everything like that about whether this wall should happen or not. Now, we're not going to get into the debate or conversation of that here today because it is a very sensitive subject. But when you think about it, when you think about confirmation bias, you can think about heavy-hitting subjects like that and think about what confirms your belief, what objective facts are present, and what you're actually seeing. With collaborative thinking, if it's done the right way, it can help open your thought process up to see all of those objective facts, not just where the objective facts and what confirms your beliefs meet. All right, so here's going to another activity where I want you to pause and I want you to consider a topic where you may have students in our classroom who have confirmation bias. How would you go about as an instructor to encourage an open mind in the classroom? How are you going to put that emphasis on? It's not who's right and who's wrong. It's how are you going to make students see the whole picture? See confirmation bias a lot in our classroom as bioenvironmental engineering technician instructors is when we talk about the subject of smoking. So think about some of the students and the conversations they've had about smoking cigarettes and how the students who are totally against smoking and their confirmation bias, and then your students that do smoke cigarettes and how they have their confirmation bias about it's really not that bad for you. You have to have genetic precursors to get cancer and all of those things. So think about those confirmation bias and what can you do to encourage an open mind in the classroom so that the students can have a healthy debate. So go ahead and pause your recording, think about this, and write it down for your class summary. So now we're at collaboration station. How can we integrate collaboration into the classroom to help the students build these critical thinking skills? So it's not that the idea of critical thinking skills that have been preached about in the education world for so long are wrong. It's that critical thinking skills don't have to be the student building them on their own. So how can we, as bioenvironmental engineering technicians, as airmen with a big A, how can we integrate collaboration into the classroom? So what I want you to do is think about a task that we perform pretty regularly. Think about any task that the student has to perform. And if we're thinking about how we can make this task or whether or not we can make this task collaborative, is this a solitary task? In the operational Air Force, so this is a question for you to kind of ask yourself. When you're going base level, is this a task that the airman's going to perform by themselves? If they're not going to perform it by themselves, then why don't we make it an objective in the classroom that can be closed out collaboratively with collaborative thinking? If in the real world they're going to close this task out, they're going to go out and perform this job with several other minds, then why aren't we giving them that opportunity to close out the objective in the classroom in groups? An example here would be an air sampling event. So as you guys know, base level, an airman is never ever going to go out and perform an air sampling event solo. There's going to be many people involved working with them to develop an air sampling narrative, especially when they're junior airmen. So why don't we create tasks in the classroom that allow the student to work together, to brainstorm, to have that collaborative thinking on how to perform this air sampling event from cradle to grave, as opposed to making the students sit there and have to do it all on their own. And here is another activity. So another moment where I want you to just pause, and I want you to use your class summary and think about one objective that we close out in our classroom, in our apprentice class. What's one that comes to mind where the student can benefit from collaboration? Obviously, you have to pick a different one than the air sampling event that I just mentioned, but think of an objective. There's several that come to my mind almost instantly. Think about some of those objectives and write it into your class summary. So go ahead and pause here and write that down. So here we go, guys. We're at the end. This was just a very quick 30,000 foot view of collaborative thinking. I can't wait to get into it more with you guys later. So collaboration, an important note about collaboration is it builds those critical thinking skills. It can help eliminate some of that confirmation bias. It will help the student be able to open their eyes to other students' thought processes so they can think things through from other people's perspectives. And that's really the whole goal with collaborative thinking, is many minds coming together, forming an idea, and coming up with the best idea. Collaborative thinking is so cool, and it'll be so awesome to integrate it into the classroom. And I really hope that you guys are just as excited about starting to work collaborative thinking into our classroom as I am. So we're going to close this out with a little evaluation. So you're going to include the answer to these two questions on your class summary. The two questions are competition. Competition is key for collaboration. Why or why not? Do you agree with that statement? Elaborate on it. Don't just give me a yes because that's the way I feel, because that's obviously not going to get you credit. So is competition key for collaboration? Why or why not? And then the next question is going to be critical thinking skills can be honed by collaborative thinking. Do you agree with this statement or do you not agree with the statement? Explain your answer. It's been a lot of fun with you guys today. If you have any question, you know you can email me at any time or call my desk phone, or just stop by my desk and let's have a conversation. I'm always up for questions, or you can also include any questions you may have on your missed class summary, and I can answer them as I go through and read your guys' answers. I'm really excited to see what everybody answered this time, and I'm really excited to continue to work with you guys in the future and teach you more about collaborative thinking. This last slide here is a reference that I used. It is Thinking Collaboratively, and I hope that you guys have read the book, and I hope that you are starting to move through the chapters. So thank you so much for your time and your attention today, and that's it. Until next week.